is the sixth in our series of interviews with longtime residents of the town of Rutland.
The interview today is with Roland PMiller, here in Rutland, Massachusetts, on April 3rd, 2004. My name is Karen Greenwood, and I am president of the Rutland Historical Society. PMiller is a resident of Rutland, longtime resident of Rutland, and served sometime during World War II. And I'd like to start by asking Pop a few questions. One of the first questions I'm going to ask you is when and where were you born? We can start there.
Oh, Worcester, 1916, January 27th.
And how long did you live in Worcester?
Probably up to about when I was around 27. And I went to boys' trade school, and I went to night high school for a couple of years, commerce, and then I was worked up at Fort Devers for a while. After that, and everything else, and I went in got reclassified. I was working at a Heel Machine Company, and that's where I met my wife. I got reclassified and went into service on October 29th. 1942, and I served for 13 months, and then I would get a medical discharge. They didn't want to operate them days, you know, in a small hospital. They were afraid they would paralyze me or something like that, you know, and so they gave me a medical discharge, and then I was in the Legion afterwards, the American Legion. I was commander at one time, and I'm still chaplain, Post 310. Yeah, a lot of the fellows are gone though. Oh God, they sure are. A lot of great guys. Yeah.
Well, what do you remember before you went into service? What do you remember about growing up in Worcester? What area of the city did you grow up in?
Oh,
what neighborhood?
Down Lincoln Square area, Wachusett Street, and up by the courthouse, you know.
Oh, all right.
Up and back there, yeah.
Did you have a big family?
No, I had two sisters and a brother, and they're all gone now. I'm the only one left. Nobody really wants me. And the fellow upstairs says he doesn't want me up there because it's kind of quiet. And the guy downstairs doesn't want competition.
Oh, okay.
But I worked for quite a few companies. I was maybe a little cocky when I came out of the service, you know. If I thought it was right, I'd tell the boss he'd take it, you know. But I finally ended up here in Holden with Reed Volkswagen Die Company because I worked for him before in Worcester. And then while I was working at Reed's, one of the fellows told me, never mind putting your rent slip in the jaw. He says, go buy a house. So I ended up buying this old farm there from Mosios used to live there one time.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, when was that? What year did you move out and buy that house?
We moved here in 1955, and I cried the first week down. We used to walk down to the corner. This was all woods. There was nothing around outside of Bill Williams and Nancy Williams. They were great. They're great people. And I was used to living in the housing project, the last place, down there at Lakeside.
Yes.
And I used to go down to Gilvain's and have a little drink or something like that, and then go to work. But that's the way it was, you know. But up here, this is the best place there was. That my kids grew up here. We had cows, and chickens, and ducks, and everything else, and all that stuff. But no more barn, no more chicken houses or anything else. That was all gone now. Yeah, but it's a great town. I'm telling you. The great people here.
It's changed a little bit, but it's still got that rural.
Yes, yeah. A lot of the farms are gone now. We have some nice farms there. The Stevens farm, I remember buying a cow off a calf off of Stevens. Emmett Stephen, oh God, he was a nice guy. And all of these fellows, oh, they were great people, yeah. And the Jordan farm, that's about one of the only farms left, I think, around here. And yeah, but I've had some great times here, wonderful people. Your mother was a town clerk.
Yes, many years.
She was quite a woman. She still is.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are some of your other memories from town? Where was the Stevens farm?
The Stevens farm is over there off of Palmagussit Road there, and oh, I can't think of the name.
Sharnik?
Sharnik Hill. No,
All right.
No, somewhere in there.
Some down there.
Yeah, somewhere right in there. And there was what's the name? I don't know if they, across from Damon Pond there's a farm up there.
Herrick?
No, it was, his father ran an automobile place, big tall fella. He passed away a couple of years ago.
Dolan?
Oh.
Wasn't Dolan.
Yeah,
Dolan.
right, yes.
The young one over here, remember
yes,
Dolan?
thank you, yeah. Big tall fella.
Yeah. Yes.
I guess his family still runs a farm over there, but I don't know if they still have animals or not. I can't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And how many years were you at, what was it in Holden you worked at, Reed Roll?
Oh, 25 years. Yeah.
And then Heald Machine Company was before.
Yeah, that was when I first came back from Florida. I was living down there with my aunt and uncle. That was back in 1942. I went to work and worked there for about 7 or 8 months. That's where I met my wife. Poor girl. We've been married 61 years. How she ever put up with me, I'll never know. Yeah.
Did you have odd jobs when you were growing up?
What's that?
Did you have odd jobs? What kind of jobs did you have as a teenager when you were in school? What did you do
Oh,
to earn a few pennies back then?
oh, I used to play ball and stuff like that. And I went to grammar school, Dick Street Grammar School. That's all gone now. I went to Boys Trade School down there, Lincoln Square. And I used to belong to the boys club there, Lincoln Square. Oh God, yes. I went dancing at the girls club, 10 cents.
10 cents.
Yeah, that's where I learned how to dance. I was in the CCs for 6 months back in 1934, up in Mount Warren, New Hampshire, and up near Mount Moosilauke. Helped build a road up there.
In over 6 months?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of water's been over the dam. Yeah. You work for $1 a day. Matter of fact, I worked one time for Liggett's for $9.51 a week, and I never knew what the 1 cent was for.
Something about taxes being taken out or whatever.
Oh, God.
And then family, what you have children. You mentioned you have some children. Are they around town here?
Oh, yes. Well, my oldest boy is back here now. My oldest boy, Les, lives over in New Braintree. And my son, Stephen, lives down here in Maple Ave. My son, Dickie, lives over here in North Brookfield. My daughter Nancy is married. She lives up here in Hubbardston on 62. I got 5 granddaughters. 2 of them are in Rutland. Well, one goes to Westfield State. I got another granddaughter down in North Brookfield, and I got a granddaughter up there in Georgia, up near the Tennessee border, and I got my granddaughter Lisa is up in New Hampshire. I got one great-grandson up there in Georgia, and a great-granddaughter there, and another great-granddaughter up there in New Hampshire. So I got a great family. I'm very fortunate. They all behaved. Of course, I was strict too, you know. When I said jump, they jumped. But like Stephen told me one time, I was at the when I was in the Veterans Hospital and had my foot operated on down here. I come home on a weekend leave just before September. Stephen said, "Dad, I'm not going back to school." And I took the cane and I held it up and I says, "You either go back to school or I'll bite this cane over your back." He went back to school at Wachusett and he made the honor roll. I should have done that to all of them, huh? Yeah.
So what do you do to keep yourself busy now? In
What's
addition,
that?
you belong to the American Legion here in town, you're the chaplain.
I'm
Is-
still there.
You're still there,
Yeah.
that's a few
And-
years you've been a
and
member.
I belong to the Disabled American Veterans. They kept sending me notices every once in a while to join, so finally I did. So I belong to Chapter 4 down in Worcester there. And they were great guys too. I was on the committee for them and everything else. But I'm 88, so I don't want to be doing it too much now. Matter of fact, I don't care too much about driving at night now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crazy ones out there.
Yes, yes,
And
definitely.
You gotta be careful. These new lights that they have on the cars, boy, that blue light, you know, they probably drive you up a wall. Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies at all? Something that interests you, or you just like to relax
Oh,
now at your age?
I used to do a lot of fishing with Lloyd Viner, Ray Klein. I used to play golf years ago for $1.50 on a Monday morning at Wachusett Country Club with Reedsville Thread Dye Company at least, you know. Oh, yeah.
Did you play a good game of golf?
Oh, there. Yeah. The 19th hole was the best.
Yes, yes.
A little bit. I'm a Shriner. I belong to the Masons and Rufus Putnam Lodge here. I do a lot there for the shrine and everything else, you know.
Now, where were, you mentioned fishing, that was a few years ago, but where were some of your favorite fishing holes as the...
Oh, we used to go mostly up to Comet Pond and up to Quabbin. That was the best too. Yeah.
They probably both still are the best too.
I used to go up to Canaan, Vermont, up there. They were great people up there. Yeah. Monty Jackson, big tall man. He's the only fellow I knew that could smoke a cigar and drink a beer at the same time. Yeah.
I can't say I've ever met anybody like that in my lifetime.
His wife is still alive, but he's gone. Lloyd Vine is gone. Quite a few of them are gone. Yeah.
But you have your memories. Those are always a
yeah,
good
I
thing
got
if
a
you
lot
have your
of good-
memories.
I got a lot of good memories. Yeah. And you're quite a girl for the veterans and everything else. You've been like that for a long time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
someday
were-
they'll be interviewing me.
And you were in the service too.
Yes, in the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah. A Swabby.
Swabby, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, is there any thoughts that you might have about just to tell us about growing up in Rutland, you know, raising your family in Rutland and then changes that you've seen.
You know, I forgot something.
Go ahead.
I was civil defense director in Rutland one time.
And what did that entail? What
I
did
took I used to go down to where, not Waltham, somewhere there. I used to go down there with the fellows from the town and get supplies, surplus, you know. And we set up the water barrels at the hospital, doing the Korean War, stuff like that, you know. Yeah, I forget a lot of things, you know, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, because back then we had both hospitals that were pretty full.
I could walk out the door and all of a sudden, oh, I remember this, I remember that, huh? Oh, God.
But any thoughts on Rutland, how much it's changed?
What, change?
Changed.
And
I
here?
think it's changed a little bit. There's a few more
Oh,
houses around.
Changed too much. Too much. It spoiled a lot of land. There's too much here. It was all right for a little. We needed a little change, but that not too much. I missed the market there that Bigelow had, and what's the name? Passed away there. Reed. Remember
Oh yes,
that?
Mr. Reed, yes.
He had a market, and when you wanted a piece of meat, they would say how thick, and they would slice it off for you. Huh? You don't see that no more. Although down the Big Y, they do something like that once in a while. Yeah. But most of the stuff is already cut in the case, you know. Oh yeah.
We used to have the general store up here in the center of town. You could get everything in the general store.
Oh,
You didn't have to go into the
Yeah.
city to get your jeans or your
what's
sneakers.
the name of he was the chief of police, ran the store.
Jack Collins.
John Collins.
John Collins.
Yeah. Matter of fact, didn't somebody here live in this house here, a friend of his or somebody?
Well, this house is the Wood House.
Yeah. Which?
The Hamps.
No.
Next door.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Oh, next door where the fire station is. That's
Yeah.
right. The
Yeah.
building used to be there.
Mhm.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
where he used to live.
Right.
Yes.
Because there was an artist that lived here.
Franklin Wood. Yes.
Yeah,
With his studio in the back.
right. And the Council on Aging took over the studio for a while.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Just for a little while.
Yeah.
Well, the center of town surely is.
That's when I was in charge. That's when I was in charge of the Council on Aging.
Oh.
Back when I first retired. Must be at least 22 years ago or something like that. I've been retired for 25 years. And then I retired when I was 62. But I never retired really until I was 79 when my wife said to me, you better quit. Because I worked down at IGA as a bag boy, and then I worked at Holden Hills setting up tables for banquets, and then I worked for 3 insurance companies in Holden, Walter Henry and D. Fraser. There's another one I can't think of. I used to take my wife with me. We used to go to the registries and stand in line up there in Gardner, and then that closed up. Then we went to Leominster, and went over to Southbridge and Worcester. Oh my God! And I used to take it to lunch afterwards, you know. Okay. I've done some crazy things in my life.
Well, and you know, it's up to you to just tell us what you want to tell us here as you
What's that?
remember them. You know, if you remember things, we
Oh,
want you to share with us. That's why we
well,
have this little interview.
yeah, I used to be in the parades and stuff like that years ago.
Memorial Day and
Oh,
4th of
yeah.
July and
Yeah.
Well, we still have those. We're
Yes.
very blessed out here to still have them.
I still make the coffee for him Memorial Day morning. Yeah. And then Judkins, remember Judkins?
Yes?
Well, when he was getting retired, he was, well, 90 years old somewhere. He said, "Pop, you take over my place." Oh, I took his place as chaplain and then coffee maker. Oh, God, he was quite a guy. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the old Legion Post was down here on Palmagussit Road.
Yeah, and Memorial Drive.
Yeah. And then we met at the fire station, you know. That's where we meet now. Yeah. But the money that they got from the building, they give out scholarships every year. So that's good.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's good for the kids in town. Yeah. I guess that's about all I can remember for you.
Can you think of any questions for him, Bob, at all, as he was chatting?
No, I'm learning more than anything else.
Yes, yes. We learn a lot from these interviews.
I don't know.
Well, what it was like to be in town when it was very small.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much.
Well,
We appreciate it.
I don't know if that's any help to you with anything else, but I tried my best anyhow.
You did. You did a very good job. I thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I just have a form here for you to sign, because what we'll do is we take copies of this.
This is the fourth in our series of interviews with longtime residents of the town of Rutland.
We're at the Rutland Historical Society. My name is Scott Davis, and this morning we're going to interview Tony Martelli. So, Tony, you came to Rutland when you were about 10. Is that right?
9 years old.
9. Where did you come from?
I came from a little town about 40 miles inland from Pesaro, Italy, a little town called Mercatello.
Metcatella.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mercatello is the name of it. And it was a walled city. It had 4 gates when I was young for to get into the city to keep the bums from raiding the place.
Really?
Yeah, you had to come through the gates to get in there.
Now, do you still have family back there?
I have my father's grandchildren, brother's grandchildren over there. I think I was over there 4 years ago. I still got 22 first cousins over there.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was over there with Mr. Blair and his son, and then my son and his son. And they're all like pretty well-to-do kids today, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
My grandson in Florida, my John's son, He's be 35 years old, and he's making $130,000 a year per pay.
He's doing very well, isn't he?
Oh,
Mhm.
he was working for the engineering firm that has the city of Boston new tunnel and everything. I think I know the name of the company, but I can't think of it at the second. But he was making with them $36,000 a year when he got out of college. A couple of years later, this other company took him away from that company and doubled his pay, because every time the Tallahassee officials needed an engineer, they always called Jimmy down, my grandson. So the other guy got cut and he hired him.
Mhm.
And in a couple of years, he put in that, he drained a great big area. He had about, I forgot, 6 or 7 miles of a doubled 10 by 10 box to clear this area. He got all that done, and then he sent him up to Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And he opened up in an office up there, and he done a lot of business around the edge there for 4 or 5 years. And he was the executive that done all the business for the city of Atlanta. Everything he done always dealt with the city, and he got a good name for himself up there. Now this millionaires, they got 500 acres down in Florida on the west coast, and it's 30 feet above sea level, and it goes from the main ocean on the west coast to a big, what do you call it? It's salt water. What do you call it? Down on the Route 98, going from all the way from Pensacola back down along the coast, and now they got it back down there dealing with that land. And I'm telling you, that boy, it really, admires what he's accomplished in 5 or 6 years out of graduation.
He's done very well.
Yeah.
He's done very well. That's good. Now, that's your grandson by your son John.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I want to get back to your kids a little bit, but I want to get back to when you first came here. It was 1920?
1920.
1920.
December 1920, I landed here.
Okay. And where did you live first?
I lived in Mercatello, Italy, with my grandfather.
Okay. But after you came here in 1920, where did
Yeah.
you?
I was left, believe it or not, with my grandmother when I was 16 months old.
Mm-hmm.
And my father and his brother and another fellow, they were hired by this company to drive mules and do work for the Ashcan Reservoir for the city of New York. And I don't know, they gradually, afterwards, when they were all done there, they gradually worked on the railroad back and forth, and they ended up in Rutland.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when my uncle went back to Italy to bury his sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they brought me back.
Okay.
Because my mother, I say, left me with my grandparents when I was 16 months old.
Wow. Okay. So you came here with your uncle.
With my uncle, yeah.
Uncle, what was your uncle's name?
Louis Martelli.
And Louis was the barber eventually?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you came here in 1920 with Louis,
Yeah.
and which house did you start out in?
Well, we started out at Louis' house the first year.
Which is the one at the top of Pound Hill?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my father bought they used to call it, was the Bartlett land on Central Tree Road.
Okay.
You know where Stillings lives?
Yes, I do.
I built that stone house in 1939.
So the Carl Stillings house that we have today was...
Yeah, my father gave me the land.
Okay, in 1939.
Yeah,
Okay. And you built that.
you know,
Your father's name was Lorenzo.
yeah.
Okay.
But you don't see, before that, it was in the late 20s, and believe it or not, I owned a Model T express wagon with the solid rubber tires in the
Really?
back. Yeah. But the one time, this was, and I get kind of upset because my father, all he wanted me to do was work on the farm, milk cows and, do all that stuff. And believe it or not, I did work in the milking cows, $9.45 a week for 48 hours, 6 days, $9.45. It's up,
It's, times have
So,
changed.
Well, anyway, then I met a man, and I got friendly with him, and he says he lives in New York, see? So I forget, he was 27 or 28 years old at that time. And I moved to New York with him for a little while, and I got a job washing dishes right down in Wall Street in the restaurant. I worked there about 10 or 12 days, and I got the hell out of there. It was too much. So, believe it or not, I had the money I got there, and I had a few bucks. I went to school to be in the old days, when they used to show movies, they used to have a torchlight. It used to be with a big reflector in the back of it to show the light on the screen.
Okay.
Well, I went to school there for about a month to be and I ran out of money, so I couldn't quite finish it. I came back to Rutland. And then one thing led to another. Then I got a job in the kitchen up at the state hospital.
The kitchen at the state
It's
hospital, okay.
The tuberculosis hospital. I worked there 5 years. I got to be it kept being the dishwasher, but every time the cook came in, the drunk wouldn't show up, I always done the cooking. When it came time to give me the job, the cooking job, they gave it to somebody else from another department.
Really?
So I quit. I haven't worked steady since. But believe it or not, before the war, I took an old automobile. Remember, they'd be just with the curtains, so I cut the back out. I made a pickup out of it. So what I used to do, all the people all clean my ashes out of my cellar and, clean the yard. So I used to bring a load of junk to the dump. Every time I went down there, I brought a load back. A scrap out and everything was there. So, believe it or not, when the war came along, I had a good-sized pile of iron. And this Jewish fellow that used to come around with a pickup and buy this stuff, he made me an offer of $500 for that pile of junk. And I gave it to him.
That was good money in those days.
Oh, it was.
That was very good
Yeah.
money.
But I'm telling you, I've had one experience, but this, believe it or not, this is in 1937. I was going to get married in October 31, 1937. So about a month before that, this man I know from Worcester, we used to buy wine from him, grapes to make wine that my father used to buy. So he said, gee, he says, I'm running, he was a moonshine maker, selling moonshine. And they had, believe it or not, they had a still over here in Leicester, between Spencer and the Paxton. 2,500 gallon stills, two of them, one for the first run and one for the second run. They had a column up there that was about 3 foot in diameter, about 10, 50 feet high, with a condenser at the top. And the moonshine they made it matched anything that the government had. They were really good.
Uh-huh.
So, believe it or not, this here, on Wednesday morning, at 5 o'clock, the fella comes, he says, "Gee, Tony," he says, "you'll have to go drive your truck," because the guy rented my truck, see. I was getting $100 a week for my truck, and $100 a week to work at the still. So I worked at the still, I forget, a couple of weeks, I guess. So the guy comes this morning, about 5 o'clock, and says, "Gee, Tony," says, "you'll have to go drive the truck." The revenues recognize me. So, believe it or not, at 6 o'clock, they rigged the joint. I'm
Really?
out of there. and I'm getting married on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So they pick up this guy, they pick up that guy. Believe it or not, I got married, I got on my honeymoon, I was in New York.
You were lucky, weren't you?
And they came looking for me
Uh-huh.
on Sunday.
Mhm.
And they came looking for me on Monday, they came looking for me on Tuesday. Every time they came, a different brother answered. And then they didn't know which one was at the still. So, believe it or not, I never got picked up.
Wonderful.
But I was supposed to get, when I got on my honeymoon, I was supposed to get $800 for 4 weeks' work.
Mm-hmm.
I got cramps.
Uh-huh.
I had to pay to get my truck out of hot the following spring.
Uh-huh.
I've never been in that business since.
That was probably the end of that business then.
No, those guys, they know how to do it. They moved to another place,
They
and
did.
they had a smaller place, you know, not quite so much.
But
No,
you-
then, I say, then, I get married, things were a little rough, you know, and work here, work there, you know, all. So, then in 1939, I got this job in a tunnel down in Fayetteville for this, you know, for the Boston to.
Right.
So, gee, I was making $1.05 an hour in 1939. Boy, they're down 225 feet.
But that was good pay in 1939. $1.05.
Oh, yeah.
That was good.
It was excellent because the carpenters were only getting 75 cents an hour on top of the ground.
Mhm.
See? So anyway, like I say, I worked there just a little bit over a year. And by jeepers, the stone work that Mason done for that stone house you see on Central Tree Road, I had the basement all done, the base part all done. But from the ground up, him and his two sons, they done all the stone work for $375.
Wow.
Labor, you know?
Uh-huh.
It was really something. And so I paid him, I had it all done. And I sold the house, I think it was 7 years later. Yeah, 7 or 8 years later.
Mhm.
For the house, I built it all out of stone, and I tore down a little station wagon in Jefferson at the railroad that was abandoned. So I finished building the house with the used lumber out of there. So all I got was new lumber just for the roof. I built that house for $1,500 from the bank, borrowed money.
That's amazing. You could do
It
that.
was amazing.
Right.
But when I bought the land where I am now, that changed it completely, because that house there cost me $15,000 to build without the land. And then I bought the garage over here, you know, from John McGann
Right.
in I think it was 58 or 59.
Okay.
And it was leased. So, city service had it leased for 5 years.
Mhm.
And my wife's cousins were, were working there, pumping gas. So the company wanted another 5-year lease, so I gave them another 5 years. In 10 years, I had it paid off.
Wow.
But one of the assessors here in town, it got kind of thick against me. He thought I was going to buy the town out. And he assessed that thing for every penny of taxes I was getting for it.
Really?
Yeah, all the rent.
Mhm. Mhm.
And well, Well, anyway, the other boys straightened it out, you know what I mean, they got it all straightened out. But he's so jealous because his sons wasn't doing it, he was in the business. But anyway, that's what one of,
I
I was
seen,
surprised
Yeah.
that, you know, that it happened to me, turned on me like that, because I'd done a lot of work for the man.
Mm-hmm.
And that man built my father's house where Lamson lives now, you know Lamson?
yeah, I do.
Central Tree Road.
So
Well,
your father Lorenzo lived where Lampson lives now?
where Lamson lives
Okay.
now,
Mhm.
he bought that place, there was 3 acres there, there was three rooms, 1, 2, 3 in a row. The main foundation was there, but the house had burnt down before we bought it.
I see.
So we hired this man to build the house in 1925, my father did. And in spite of everything, the way the guy, so come and talk with somebody for an hour, 2 hours at a time. I'm telling you, it took a rubbing. But my mother was pretty uneducated. She could speak English, she couldn't read or write, but by jeepers, she knew how to make money. Nobody could jip her at the store, believe it or not, when she went to the grocery store.
Mhm.
She always knew the right change and everything,
Good for her.
yeah. And it was good.
Mhm.
So anyway, with her ingenuity, and made a little home brew, and then when the fall came, there was an abandoned orchard. So my father and I and my 3 brothers, we went down and picked all the apples that was abandoned. And we used to make 25 or 30 barrels of cider, 40-gallon barrels of cider. In 2 or 3 years, we sold out, my mother sold all that between homebrew and everything. She paid for that house.
Good for her.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And believe it or not, we all worked in the garden, used to sell enough, but always canned enough so that we had canned goods right out of the yard, peaches, plums, the fruit, everything. And we lived off that piece of land. It was just unbelievable, you know?
Let's talk about that. You lived in the house, in what we call the Lampson house,
Yeah,
during your boyhood and teenage years?
Yeah.
When you were a young fella?
yeah, up until about a year after I got married.
Okay.
Then my father gave me a little piece of land on the corner,
Mhm.
and that's what the stone house is now.
So when you were living in that house as a teenager, what were your interests? Was there a ball team in your side of town?
Well,
That sort of thing? What
no,
did you do in those days?
no, believe it or not, when I was at the end of the school, we used to play ball. And of course, my father, he was against that because he thought that we should just stay home and this and that. But I played baseball at the prison camp down here.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's quite a ride from where you were living.
Well, at the time, yeah.
Mhm.
But the guy there, the people that I knew, we used to go down there and then they used to come and play the ball over there at the Rutland State Sand, where now it's all full of houses.
Mhm. They had a ball field over there
Yeah,
somewhere.
that ball field there, see? You know where the store used to be there, the little booze joint, you took a left?
Rita Candy's?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, you went up to the top of the hill there on the left, and the ball field was there, and now it's all full of houses.
Now it's all houses.
I
yeah.
built the streets and done all the drainage and everything for Mr. Blair,
Uh-huh. Sure. Sure.
yeah. And let's see, it kept on going like that, and then I got married, and I worked, like I say, I worked in that tunnel 225 feet for just about a year.
Uh-huh.
After that, I didn't get a job right away. I went to New York, and I worked in the tunnel down there over 700 feet deep. I worked in the railroad down there. But, you know, once in a while, when they used to be drilling, all at once there'd be an explosion, natural gas. So after about 2 weeks, I had enough, I quit. I came back home, and a job here and there, you know.
Mhm.
And then the war came along, you know. So when the war came up and started coming along, I got a job as a carpenter with E.J. Cross. And I helped him with the rebuild the factory down here in Barry, you know, where they make all the drills. I worked on that job there, redone it so they had more room there. And the next job I worked for him was at Norton Company, building stages for the bricklayers. And that was the end of my carpenter work with E.J. Cross. I got a job in heel machine, building the heel machine. In a little over 30 days, this man used to sit, you know, there, and I started rebuilding the machine. First I used to watch him, but then he was watching me. So I started to rebuild the machine, and the inspector comes along, and he does this and that, you know, he touches all the adjustments and knocks it off. So he went off, I got it all reset up again, I called him again, and he started to touch that stuff. I said, hey, leave it alone. We got into an argument, the boss comes over, he inspects the job, and I was doing the assembly. It all passed perfectly. He said, there's nothing wrong with it. And I said, it's been like that. I said, but he always, you know, tried this and that. It was fun because all we done, everything was on, not, you know what they call it, on little pads like, you know, and you adjusted the screws and brought it up to level, and you done it by hand, you know. And I'm telling you, I worked there almost 2 years, and I assembled some of the finest machinery that you ever made there. It's unbelievable how delicate, in tens of thousands, they would stop automatically. And you know the tapers on the fans, on the, what do you call it, on the plane, what do they call it, the thing, the propeller. They had tapers, and these things would grind those tapers perfect. Fit in there, I'm telling you, oh, unbelievable. How fancy all those machines were. All at once, they got caught up and slacked off. So, and then this guy that was working there, he said, gee, he says, I'm gonna go back to work for the auto car company. He said, why don't you come with me? I said, I don't know nothing about auto cars, you know, there was being a mechanic. Oh, he says, you've done good here, he says, you'll do all right over there. So, all right, so I went down, I took the job, I went down, and I got hired, and I started working there. Well, the day they hired me, they hired a guy that's supposed to be a professional. So what do? They give me and him a job reinforcing the frame of a truck that used to carry 1.5 tons. They wanted to make it so it would carry 8 or 10 tons. So we put the big heavy beams on each side, see? So I worked in a steel yard before that, so I knew that stuff. So in a few days I had both sides all done. I had the big thing laying on the horses, you know, and I done all my measurements off the frames where all the bolts was gonna go, and I would punch them over there. Drilled all the holes, laid it all up perfect, both sides. And the other guy, 2 weeks later, he didn't have one side on yet. So, and then, this was about probably 2 or 3 weeks later. So then, I was getting 10 cents an hour less than everybody else for a pay. So I went to the boss and I told him, hey, he says, I want a raise. And then I had him give me, instead of $1.90 an hour, like they were getting, I said, I want $1 an hour. Oh, I can't do this and that. And I said, okay, I said, I know where I can get $1 an hour tomorrow, you know. So they give me $1 an hour and everybody got a raise. Yeah. So, like I said, I worked there, believe it or not, about 18 or 19 months. And, well, I don't know if I should have done it or not, but the chance came. I went all the way to Hawaii. I got this job running a clamshell on the biggest air base in the island of Oahu, where the Pearl Harbor is. And I ran this, first of all, I was there for about a couple of weeks. I got hired as a mechanic, I worked as a mechanic. And as I was working there as a mechanic, the chief mechanic comes over and he brings me a tractor, Ford tractor. I think you understand. The things they laid around there, and the humidity and everything, the disc on the clutch was seized to the flywheel. And they had trouble, and every time they wanted to free it up, they cut, unbolt the thing and pull it apart. But geez, I stood there and I looked at it, I bet you for 5 or 10 minutes. And finally, I figured out with the roundness of the housing, I drilled a hole, it's a 1/2-inch hole, and I could see the clutch. I got to sharpen the screwdriver, I had the guy hold the pedal down, put the screwdriver under the pad, one spot, turned it over, done it 2, 3 places. The guy went in and out with the pedal, the clutch was loose. In about half an hour, it was all done instead of a day and a half.
Good for you.
And I done the same thing over here at Clem Tractor. When I came back from there, I worked over there one winter. I done the same thing over there. And they brought in the tractor the same way with a seized clutch. I drilled a hole in the right place, and I bet you he charged the people $400 or $500 for putting it.
He probably made a lot of money because of
They
you.
did make a lot of money.
Let's get back into some of the things you did in Rutland again. Church. Were you a churchgoer?
Yeah, I used to go to church.
Where was the church?
The church was St. Patrick's over here.
Across the road
Across
where.
the street. Across the street.
Okay.
But I was never much of a goer for that church.
No.
The thing that, when my son, my son John.
I know your son John. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when he graduated from high school, he had barely passing marks. So anyway, then when he gets, like I say, when he came back from Vietnam in a basket, Fort Devens, and believe it or not, after he got better, he was hooked on Percodan for a couple of years. And he says, I'm going to go to college. I said, what the hell do you want to go to college for? He says, you had barely passed the marks. So anyway, he goes to Liberty Baptist College. And in 3 months, less than 3 months, he caught up to everybody, and he's an ordained preacher of the gospel today. Believe it or not.
Yeah, he's done very well, hasn't he?
And like I say, his son, I helped his son go to college, and he's an engineer.
He's done very well too.
Oh, that boy, I'm telling you, I was talking with him yesterday. I called him, and he says, gee, we must have talked for about half or 3 quarters of an hour. I said, gee, Jimmy, I says, I'm holding up from their work. He said, Grandpa, he says, what you done for me? He says, I don't care. He says, I'm going to do my work, I'll talk with you. And that's the results I got,
Yeah.
It makes me feel real good, because like with Mr. Blair, when he came from Northampton, he used to be a wheat puller in the tobacco fields up there. And the first summer he came down here, he went back there.
Are you talking about Clee or Cecil?
Cecil.
You're talking about Cecil, okay.
This was Cecil.
Okay.
And like I say, but this is Clee, though. See, Cecil moved down here, but Clee went back to work up there in the fields. But then he got acquainted with my wife's cousins, the DeLucas, and then he got acquainted with at my house with my wife's cooking. He got away from it yet. Believe it or not, I had him up there for dinner. This is about 1.5 years ago. He hasn't been back since. He went home, he gained 10 pounds. I'm telling you, he ate a big pile of meatballs, all the macaroni. I'm telling you, he just stopped eating until everything was gone. But, you know, I get along good with all of them. I got 28 great-grandchildren. And if everything goes right, in the next 3 or 4 months, I'll have the 5th generation.
Wow.
Yeah. So it
That's
makes me feel good, you know?
Sure.
And like I say, with the construction work, I've done all construction work all over the state. I've even had a little invention stolen from me. This year was back in 1953. I had a contract with the town of North Wilbraham for 3.5 miles of pipe, 16-inch water main. And it went all the way from North Wilbraham, which is Route 20, all the way through Ludlow and underneath where at that time they were building the Mass Pike up through Ludlow. And I put my water main through there, then they had me put an extra water main in there in case one went, so they won't have to dig it up the second time to put a second water main. So I done all that work, and believe it or not, I pushed a 3-foot pipe under the New York Central Railroad, 3-footer, and 40 feet, a little over 40 feet, from 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock the next morning. It was all done, all cleared. And we had to clear it as we went, because you know what happened? I didn't put a heavy cutting edge on it. It was 3/8 steel. But we hit a couple of rocks. After we pushed it about 8 feet, we got in there, cleaned it out, see what it looked like. It had bent a couple of spots. So we rejacked it out and kept it dug as we pushed it. But I'm telling you, by the next morning, from 8 o'clock in the morning, the next morning it was all done. Over 40 feet. And the engineer, he was surprised. And then, when I crossed the Chicopee River Bridge up there, that's over 300 feet across the bridges with that pipe. And when the engineer, at where the pipe was coming out of the ground, the bracket that was holding the pipe down on the cement, you know, it came up like this and leveled off to go over the bridge. So where it came up here, I put there was a strap to hold it down. And the strap was like this and like that, it went around. But I wanted him to pay me to reinforce the corners so they wouldn't open up. The lousy guy wouldn't do it. And when I put the 200 pounds pressure on the pipe, that pipe came right up like this. And there's a big collar about that long because the weather, the cold from the hot is over 6 inches, used to go back and forth from summer to winter. And it's a wonder that collar didn't break. But anyway, so, you know, I got kind of thick. I almost done it. I says to him, I had 200 pounds on the pipe, and that was supposed to do that every 1,000 feet, tested water main. And that means it would have taken just about 15 days, 1,000 feet, every 1,000 feet, in 3.5 miles. So I said, I'm going to do it all at once, and blah, blah. So at the end, I took the hydraulic pumps that used to run my blade on up and down on the tractor. The intake hose, I put it into a barrel of water. The exhaust, I put it into the water main. In a half an hour, I had that whole 3.5 miles of pipe up to 200 pounds pressure. And it held it for an hour. And I passed the whole test. And that engineer wouldn't help me to get that thing patented. So 6 months later, the guy's got a 3-horse Briggs & Stratton air-cooled engine with a hydraulic pump, and that's the way they've been testing all the water mains ever since. I done the first one. Before that, even R.H. White, he was a big pipe man before me, and he was doing it every 1,000 feet the way the engineers designed it. And I was supposed to do that on that job. If I had done that on that job, I'd have lost my shirt. Because you have to cut a day down from doing that. You gotta, at the end of the pipe, you know what I mean? You can't leave that space there. So anyway, I done the whole thing. And it was really an interesting thing. But like I say, I had jobs at the Munster State Hospital. I'll bet you, I had a half a dozen different contracts up there. The first contract I had up there, I put a million-gallon standpipe on one end of the hill and a 500-gallon, 5,000-gallon one on another part of the hill. And I had an old tank, and I put all the altitude valves to keep the tanks all even all the time at different elevations, you know. I done all that, improved all the fire hydrants and everything, you know what I mean? I had quite a few contracts up there.
You've been a very busy contractor for many, many years.
Yeah.
You did an awful lot. Did you have any contracts in Rutland? Did you do any state road work or?
No, I had, in Rutland, I couldn't get the pipe work because the Bigelows always got it better.
The Bigelows always got the work, I see.
Yeah, they was had, just had, but I bid them on one job, believe it or not.
Which one?
Right down, you know, the extension on the end of Maple Avenue, where they extended the pipe down to the countryside estates.
Okay, mm-hmm.
And I extended that pipe, at that time, I forget, it was around 1,000 feet or so.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, those guys, I don't know who they were, but they hit the collars so that they were practically broke. When I put the pressure on, the collar break.
Really?
And then I had a couple of collars like that, and there was somebody done it, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And I got out of it. That was about the only contract
That's
I
about the
really
only-
had.
Now, when the state road went through here in 1949, 50,
That was,
I'm not sure exactly,
I think it was 1949.
49, did you get any of that work?
No,
I know you sold them some fill.
I sold them to Phil,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't get any of the job because everything was, the contractor was from Springfield. I got along good with him and everything else, you know what I mean?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But what I got out of the state, I had him put the water main across from the old street, across to the new street where the bank is. So I had the water main on my side of the street.
Oh, good.
And I didn't charge them for the land,
Mhm.
and they done that.
Oh, that's good.
So then, I say when I built Anthony Drive,
Mhm.
I put the water main down my street. And my father was living with me there, believe it or not. I think you know the name Beverly Hills Drive.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, well, my father named that.
Really?
And that's where that water main is that goes down to Anthony Drive. That would have been a street.
Now, I don't remember your father, but he must have lived into the 50s or 60s?
My father was a cripple. He had a bad hip,
Mhm.
and he grew up with that. He didn't know it.
Hmm.
And he became a cripple. He could walk like this, little steps.
Uh-huh.
And they retired him. He was take care of the pigs for the state,
Mhm.
butcher them,
Mhm.
and milk the cows. And I don't know how he did it, but anyway, when my mother passed away, the superintendent of the hospital saw his condition and he retired him. I think he was at that time he was 58 or 60 years old, somewhere in the neighborhood. He retired him, $40 a month.
And I can't live too much on that. So how long did he live after he was retired? When did he pass away?
He passed away, he was 86 and a half years old when he passed away. And he was born in 1884.
1884, the same year as my father. And he passed away when he was 86.
86 and a half.
Okay, so that would be, I don't know, about 1970.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
right in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Right. So he took care of the animals for the state.
Yeah.
Now, I remember you saying that you milk cows. Were you milking
Well,
in the same
I-
barn or a different barn?
It was the same barn,
Mm-hmm.
but that was when I turned 25, I made the 6th grade, and that was the end of my school. I worked there for the summer of 1925 and 26, and I couldn't get along with it, so I quit there. And then I got the job in the kitchen a couple of years after that.
Okay, let's go with that. You were in school until the 6th grade.
Yeah,
Which building were you in?
the main building,
The Red School?
the Red School,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so you were there for 5 or 6 years, probably.
Well, I was there from 1921 till 1925.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
the
5
spring
years,
of
yeah.
1925, that was the end of my school in there.
And now,
And I had no school since.
and when you went to that school, you weren't too good at English. You
Well,
didn't.
I learned the English, the language, to speak English
Mhm.
when I was in the 1st grade.
Mhm.
Because, you know Morris Minor, he's still living.
Yes, I know him.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
him and I, we were friends, I'm
Uh-huh.
friends with him. Oh, yeah.
So he's about the same age as you.
He's about a year, I think he's a year older,
Uh-huh.
a year younger. One way or the other, there's only about a year difference between them.
Uh-huh.
Because 92 is behind me. See, like I was telling everybody, well, I was born last October for 93.
Now that teacher that helped you learn English was Mrs. Dodge?
Mrs. Dodge was her name.
Okay.
And she lived in that house, you know, with the beauty parlor, that used to be Temple's gas station.
Yes? Mhm.
The second house down on the right is where on the one that sits there by the cemetery there at the top.
Oh,
of
the one that I would call Bob Cannon's?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's where they lived.
okay. And so Mrs. Dodge was related to the Putnams
Yeah,
somehow, okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, there's quite a thing there, you know, like I say, and I started, they used to call me the Italian Jew, all my neighbors and the friends of the family, because I always used to go down and pick up junk here and there.
Mhm.
And I used to bring it, a lot of times, when they all pick, I used to bring it down Worcester on the, what do you call that street down there where the Jews used to have the place where they buy the stuff from.
Must be Water Street.
Yeah, Water
Yeah,
Street.
mhm.
And believe it or not, I worked for a little while in a woolen mill in Holden. And they used to, all the rags used to come there and I used to run the shredder.
Oh, mhm.
Yeah,
I was trying to get some notes for today. Did you ever have a connection to Treasure Valley Boy Scout Camp?
no,
No, okay, so I don't know where I learned that. That was wrong. Okay.
oh, the Treasure Valley with the Boy Scouts, I forgot. There was not Mike with me, I think it was with my uncle. This kids, you know.
Okay, okay.
I know there was a little connection there, but it wasn't on my side of the family.
Okay, I thought there was a connection, but I didn't have it right. Because I think Treasure Valley was a chicken farm back around 1920 or so.
I don't
Yeah.
really remember
Okay,
because
I don't-
at that time, the farm, who's the guy that used to have the cars there?
The town,
The town.
the town?
Yeah, well,
yeah.
before that,
Mhm.
my wife folks, they owned that house
Mhm.
at the top of the hill, just before they built all those new houses there. And that's where I met my wife. She was there. I hired her brother to drive my truck while I was working in the Holden Trap Rock.
Your wife's name was
Calerio.
Anna.
Yeah.
Anna Calerio.
Yeah.
Okay, and she would be sister to Ralph and Ozzie?
Yeah.
Okay,
Ralph and Ozzie, then her sister married my brother,
I see.
Danny Martelli.
Oh, so can we list all of your siblings? Who was the oldest
In my family,
in your family? Yeah,
I'm the oldest.
you're the oldest.
Yeah.
And then the next one would
It's
be
Danny,
Danny, and where? And
Ernie,
Ernie,
Tommy,
Tommy,
Tilly,
Tilly,
and then my brother Dino.
Dino. Okay.
Dino.
Okay.
He was born 1929.
So he was quite a bit younger.
He was way younger. He was what he called that birth effect, you know, when the woman started to pass the transportation between, what do you call it, they have the periods, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was the last baby of that.
I
that-
see.
that
Okay.
time,
Mhm,
you know what I mean?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And he, after he grew up, he joined the United States Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't a flyer, he was you know, just like a policeman. He used to go around every time the Air Force moved somewhere else. Him and once, two or three of the others, they used to look over the whole joint, the way the flyer's supposed to, the people stay out of, you know? He used to do that.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And he was, they were transferred to Bermuda in 1962 or 61, I forget exactly. It was 61 or 62. And the guy that was running the base there, he put this cook that was giving a lot of trouble cleaning machine guns in the gun room. And the guy comes up with a machine gun, and he shoots my brother, he shoots another guy, he cripples a couple of people. And that was the end of my brother. He was about 32 or 33 years old when that happened.
Wow.
I think he had just signed up for he had put 8 years already in the service. He was signing up again because he was going to make a career out of it, you know? And that's when that happened to him. He got murdered down there, the guy with machine gun.
That would be around 1960.
61 or 62, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's a tragic ending.
There was a traffic in it, because he left two boys in Ohio, you know? Yeah, it was kind of a real sad deal, you know? And then I had a sad case. My son and I, this was in 1977, we had a $260,000 sewer contract with the town of Shrewsbury. And we had, the first 30 days of that job, believe it or not, it rained every day. We went to work with overcoats, boots, and all the weather equipment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It rained every day. So anyway, the sewer we were putting at that point was about 12 feet deep. So we had the steel box, you know, the big steel box all the way down, 3 or 4 feet at the bottom, where the ground is high. And the rain, it had a soft spot. Evidently, when it would dig by, it must have softened a spot underneath that big box. And my son, he wasn't facing it. He was talking to somebody or doing something. And this thing all at once, bingo, let go, and hit him right about the belly button and killed him right there. Believe it or not. And that happened, I was dumping a bucket full of dirt because we were getting ready to put the last pipe in. We had to go probably a pipe in 6 or 7 feet, and we'd have put the manhole, that would have been the end of the line of that section. So, well, that happened, so then it turned out there was another contractor there, he had a pretty good reputation, so I turned the job over to him in my name, you know, the name and everything. The job got all finished, everything turned out, didn't have no problem with the insurance or the bonding or anything, you know. Everything, the town of Shrewsbury, everything came out good. So that there, but I lost a son.
Right. I remember him, of course. I remember the time. That was a very sad time.
Yeah, that was really a sad, sad thing. And he was, now you remember Bobby, don't you?
I remember Bobby. He and I both had children about the same
Yeah.
time. My daughter and his daughter are about the same age.
Yeah, well, his daughter's living with me now.
Oh, really?
She just moved in.
I didn't know
She
that.
got 2 little girls.
I remember her.
I'm telling you, she's a big boss. She's He's a big boss.
Yeah.
He's gonna kick
I'm
out.
sure. Now, I imagine we don't have too much film left, but,
Got about 11 minutes.
okay, so let's finish with the rest of the kids. Now, we talked about Johnny,
Yeah,
and we talked about Bob,
yeah,
and now Mary Ann cut my hair for years.
yeah. Well, Mary Ann, at the end, she got that galloping cancer.
Yes.
And in about 5 weeks, from the time she stopped doing hair, she's in the box.
Yeah.
And when hit her so fast, unbelievable. And who got hit like that? I think it was Billy Narcissi's mother. She got the same when she used to run the package store. In a couple of months, she was gone. It hit the cancer, hit her, and that galloping cancer they call it.
Yeah.
So,
That's,
but like I say, then when Mr. Blair married my daughter,
and now we're talking about your fourth child,
yeah,
your oldest child,
yeah,
Nancy, right?
and she married Mr. Blair, and he wanted to build houses, and I owned the land down there. So I built the street and brought the water down, the water main down there, and the sewer was there, came across from where Merchant is in there. The sewer came down there. So the sewer was all there, so there was no problem there. But the water main, I didn't put it down on Main Street. I put it down there because I was gonna build a street there, see? And then when Sims hooked up to the sewer, then I tapped into the sewer line and I brought it all the way across the back of Sims land. And all those buildings down there, they're all going into that sewer. No pumping, no nothing. My house is hooked in there, and Clay's house on the top of the hill is hooked up.
That worked out very, very good.
Very good, yeah. No, all those streets down there, it's all my work, all the lawns, everything. Dug all the cellars, dug all the backfilling. I got along with all the neighbors down there. A lot of neighbors that still come and visit me,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that whole side of town is a legacy that you and your family have built for Rutland and.
Yeah, we had
leaving-
built the
and,
east end of
yeah.
Rutland. As a matter of fact, we moved the son of Rutland down there.
Well, you did, when you put honey farms down there, you
Well, Honey
did
Farms
move.
on the bank.
This is
Well,
true.
That the duplex there, I built that duplex. Believe it or not, that duplex is all secondhand lumber I tore on a building in Worcester.
Really.
And all the floor joists, ceiling joists, everything was 28 feet long. I didn't have to have no post anywhere in anywhere. I could build a petition anywhere. I put a double row of, those, what do you call the bridging between the floor joists. I put a double bridge everything so that it have the strength. There wouldn't be no sagging, see? And then with the boys done all the finish work in there, yeah? And if you see, look at the outside work, the shingle, whatever you call it. I done all that outside work. And I think it looks pretty darn good, it looks straight and everything. Now, like I say, after all that, the job in the Shrewsbury, where I lost my son, and we moved back to Rutland, and I haven't done too much since, but I job here and there all the time, I always, even last year, down in 68, where Ziggy's building a house with Robert Mayowa. They're building a house over 68. They paid $80,000 for the lot. No water, sewer, nothing there. I just came from there before I came here. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable.
You just used the word Ziggy? Is that what?
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah. Who
Robert.
was that?
That's
Tell us who that is.
Robert,
That's-
Bobby. He lives down off of Blueberry Lane.
Okay, I just want to be sure I know who the people are.
Listen, Ziggy. Yeah, Ziggy, Peter and Tony and Craigie, the four of the boys, Mary Ann's four boys. They're all doing good. They're all excellent cop. Like with Tony, he's a hell of an engineer.
Well, Mary Ann had a tough life, but she was an awfully good person.
Oh, yeah.
She was an awfully good person. I love Mary Ann.
You know, at the end there, I helped her a lot with all the improvements she made around there, you know?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, she got stuck at the beginning with the wrong guy, and that was it.
But she worked her way through that. And that
She
was-
worked her way
was
through.
okay.
Now, the second husband was a good man. He was a college man, you know? He was from Maine, and he had a problem with his wife too, so, but anyway, but he left Mary Ann better off than, you know, anybody else would have ever since, before or after.
Well, Mary Ann had a lot of you in her because she was a worker.
Yeah.
She worked very hard.
Yeah, but she was, I don't know, she was able to do things, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because like I say, believe it or not, my education was the 6th grade. And I never went to school after that. I used to get plans, I used to bid the jobs. And I bid jobs for almost 40 years. I had done work past the Burlington Mall. I'd done work at the State Teachers College down in Framingham. I've worked on the tuberculosis, all the hospitals. I had contracts at all the hospitals. And that was, I used to like the hospital works because there was no unions involved. Yeah, I got a contract there. It was valid, you know, it was good. And I didn't have no union people telling me what to pay and all that baloney.
Sure.
Whatever was on the bid is what went on, you know? That's what made it good.
Okay, it's time to wrap up. Bobby's running out of film. He's running out of film. You know, Tony, I think you probably have a legacy of being one of the hardest working men in the town of Rutland, and you've been great here. And I do appreciate you coming this morning to talk to us. It's been
Nice.
very, very interesting.
Oh, it's been like I say, I really enjoyed living in this town, you know what I mean? There was from some of the old timers were a little bit, I don't know, how would you call it, whether it was jealousy, because some of their children didn't accomplish what I was accomplishing, you know? And that there, I think, goes on everywhere, no matter where you go, you know?
It's always gone on. There's always been that, and there always will be.
Yeah.
But you proved that that's okay.
But,
You can do
know,
it.
see, one thing, my neighbors, when I was up there, the neighbors was Martin Acton. He was a boozer, and his girlfriend used to be a nurse. And he stayed in her shack that she owned down below where Lamson is now on the right. And then the guy by the name of Scott, my father bought the land from him. He finally moved out of there, and then the Sarkeesians moved in. So the Sarkeesians and the guy by the name of Ed Smith lived at right at the town line, Holden Rutland town line, and he was a black man. He had bought that land down there, and he ran that farm.
Mhm.
And he was a nice guy.
Sure.
And we got along good with him.
Mhm.
But every time, after I bought a tractor, every time we had snow, I'd go down and plow everybody's driveway out. I never used to charge them,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Well, that's just the way we wish we could all grow up.
And like with John and I, and when I started dealing with him, one time I done some, I forget what it was, and I done some work for him. He says, Tony, says, how much do I owe you? I said, you owe me a pack of Dexters. He gives me 2 packs of Dexters, you know?
Oh, good.
No, that was good.
All right.
So I done that with him, you know, it was wonderful, because I never, the state built a road there, believe it or not, his house was right where the road is now, they had to move it back, and when he had to move it back, he had to move it back on the land he sold me. You know, and so he said, Tony, he said, I gotta move the house back, I bought it back from the state, I gotta move back, he says, how much you want for the land? I said, John, I said, have you got a tape measure? He said, yeah. Well, I said, you tape off what you want, and get the deed made. I said, that's how much it's gonna cost you. Oh, boy, he was happy.
For sure. That was a good thing.
So, no, I done a lot of favors with him. It was wonderful. I enjoyed life with doing,
Last minute. It's not stopped yet, but